The New York Mets have a massive problem on their hands. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The skip is a problem and he's holding back this team. So stay tuned only here on Mets Digest to find out why I believe that. I'm your host today, Mike Duda. And before we talk about and question how Carlos Mendoza still has a job, we got to talk about some subscribers. And that being the fact that 62.1% of you that watch these videos aren't one. So please do me a favor, just a favor here at Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk the skip, Carlos Mendoza. As you guys know, I mentioned this in a couple of videos ago. I went to the Met game on Friday night and I was super displeased with what I saw. And what exactly did I see that I disliked so much? Well, first and foremost, you look at Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil is someone on this team that actually wants to win. There's not many of them. Jeff McNeil cares about this team. He wants to win. And therefore, I didn't know this until after the fact, I would say Saturday morning, because I couldn't watch the post game because I was trying to get the train to get back home. Jeff McNeil is the only player in 2025 for the New York Mets to get ejected. That is embarrassing. I get it. Some people are anti-ejection. They say, oh, why show up the umpire? Why do this? Why get mad? Show some heart. That's why I love a guy that gets ejected occasionally like Jeff McNeil. He gets hot. He gets mad because he wants to win, because he cares. Now, why am I so amped up about this? Not because of McNeil. I think what McNeil did was fine. I mean, the call, it was definitely a borderline call. Some people are saying it was definitely a strike. It was on the lower third of the zone. I would say it's a strike. If I was an umpire, which I do in the summer, so I can kind of agree with umpires in a way, yeah, it's a strike. But given the Mets circumstances at that point, that was on Friday night. They're already on a 6-game losing streak. Jonah Tong just went 2/3 of an inning, giving up 6 earned runs over his 2 outs of work. The Mets were down in the dumps. Get ejected, yell, do something. I yell that all the time. So all the props in the world to McNeil. But the reason why I'm upset with Mendoza, what happened? I was watching it. I had the perfect view because I was on the first base side, so I was looking directly down. I was up too. I was in the, I believe, 500s. So I was looking directly down at the dugout. Carlos Mendoza, he just trots out. He casually walks out because he doesn't want to get ejected himself. He probably thought that McNeil getting thrown out was useless. Oh, why did he do that? I'm not going to get thrown out because this guy made a mistake. That's ridiculous. Have your players' backs, Carlos. And if that's not going to happen, if you're not going to have your players' backs, first of all, you should be fired. But second of all, maybe make sure your players actually want to be there and play. Now, you may say, oh, that's a little egregious. You can't really make fun of them for not playing good defense. I can. I watched that game in person. They looked like a Little League team. So not only did McNeil get ejected and Mendoza did absolutely nothing about it, Ronnie Mauricio, there was a strikeout. Ryan Stanek came into the game after Huasco Brasban had a really good relief outing to back up Tong, who had an awful start. Then Ryan Stanek came in because Brasban can't really throw more than about, I would say, 30 pitches. He ended up throwing north of 40 and near 50 pitches. So he overextended himself, which was good. He ate up innings for the Met bullpen. But Stanek comes in. He looks electric. Gets the first guy out with the strikeout on 3 pitches. Now, normally, and you guys have probably seen this if you've been to a baseball game before, the catcher, Francisco Alvarez, will catch the strike 3. He sees the batter swing and miss, or he hears the umpire yell strike 3, and he throws down to third base. That is common knowledge that happens in Major League Baseball. In professional baseball, even college baseball, collegiate baseball, this happens. Most high schools even do this. And Ronnie Mauricio was just looking up at the stars. Oh, hey, I'm playing baseball. Ronnie, you're playing baseball. Be involved in the game. Alvarez is throwing the ball down to you. How about you look? Ball sails right over his head and goes into left field, and Brandon Nimmo has to trot after it. Speaking of Brandon Nimmo, I don't want to harp on players because of their physical mistakes in the field, but he mistracked a fly ball really bad and ended up practically doing a backflip to make sure he caught the ball. That's when I knew that there was going to be problems all day defensively. And it wasn't just that. It wasn't just the mental error on Ronnie Mauricio. Francisco Lindor made an error. That's something that we've seen a little bit too much this year, in my opinion, that we really haven't seen from a multi-time Gold Glover and a former Platinum Glover. Huasco Brasman, although he pitched great in relief that night, he made an error. He made a throw. In fact, he made an error by not covering first base. Hey, Hey, flashbacks to Edwin Diaz last year, anyone? Yeah, exactly. That being in that game 161, if people are not familiar that are watching, Diaz refused to cover first base. He forgot, and then he ended up giving the lead back. Francisco Lindor with the antics hit the home run, and the Mets ended up winning that game. But Braziman didn't cover first. I mean, I yelled. I was like, oh, what are you, Edwin Diaz? I mean, he didn't cover first. And what I liked is not only is McNeil showing heart, I thought Pete Alonso was showing heart. Now, on the surface, you would say, because Pete Alonso was fielding a ground ball, Braziman did not cover. He came over late, but it was not in time for the play. Alonso actually threw the ball over towards first base. Now, on the surface, you'll say, oh, Alonso was just involved in the play. And maybe that's the case. Maybe I'm being too analytical thinking about this, but maybe Pete Alonso was trying to send a message to say, hey, Huascar, get in the game. We are getting killed right now, but it's not over. Let's actually play baseball. Let's try and salvage this season. So that's another thing that I just love from Pete Alonso, but I'm not even going to get excited. I know that David Stearns, who, by the way, I also want gone. I want everyone on this coaching staff gone. I want that to be known here to the viewers. Besides Antoine Richardson and John Gibbons, our first base coach and bench coach, respectively, I want everyone gone. I know Stearns in the offseason, the whole reason why I went on that rant, I know Stearns is not going to re-sign Alonso in the offseason. So with that and all my frustration out in terms of this game from Friday night, let's go ahead and hear from Francisco Lindor himself as he talked a little bit ago about just what is happening. He spoke to the struggles. What did he have to say? Well, he said, we haven't been consistent. It's one of those years that things haven't clicked for a long time. We're still in a position where we can make the year look completely different. Everyone here is pushing toward that. Now, I personally disagree based on the product that I've seen on the field. And again, this is mainly coming from those Friday night struggles that I was really, really upset with. But with that, let's go ahead and turn it into the clubhouse, because it's not just me on the outside that thinks that. Insiders are even saying it's a little weird in the clubhouse. Steve Gelb's an insider with the New York Mets and with SNY. The mood in the Mets clubhouse can be described as perplexed. Players insist they're preparing the right way, embracing the urgency, and maintaining the right attitude. They look at the talent in the room and believe it has to turn, but no one can explain why it hasn't yet. And we'll take a look at the standings. They're not mathematically out of it. They are in a postseason spot right now if the season were to end with 12 games to go. This team is way too talented to miss the playoffs. I'll let you know now, if the Mets do not make the playoffs, I'm going to make a really long video, almost like a Jolly Olive video, if anyone is familiar with him, about just what happened this season. But that's a side note. That's a tangent for a different day. Now, another thing I want to harp on Carlos Mendoza for, this is more of a side note just to show a little bit of context in terms of how bad this clubhouse is right now, just what is going on. Carlos Mendoza, he says the same exact thing. He's got a script post-game. He always says the exact same thing. But one thing that he always mentions is that we are on a, quote, bad stretch. This is not a stretch. Maybe this is a stretch. I mean, this is their worst stretch of the year when they lost 14 out of 16 games. This is a stretch when they lost 14 out of 17 games. This is a stretch where they had an 8-game losing streak just a couple of days ago. What is not a stretch is how bad the New York Mets have been since June 13th. This is the streak that Carlos Mendoza always refers to, and yes, this is about a day old. The Mets are 32-49, 17 games under 500 since they were 21 games above 500 entering June 13th play. It is ridiculous. They have played pathetic baseball, and you see it. They are in the likes of the Colorado Rockies, the Minnesota Twins, tied with the Washington Nationals, worse than the White Sox since June 13th, a team that broke the record for most losses in an MLB season last year. The Angels. I know the Giants haven't necessarily been terrible of late. In fact, they've been pretty hot, but the Giants haven't been great to start the year. The Braves, who have been awful this year. The St. Louis Cardinals, who have not gone to expectations. This is not a streak or a stretch. This is 3 months of baseball. This is bad. The New York Mets cannot be losing like this, and they just are. So let's go ahead and take a look at one more thing before we look at the standings, and that is Carlos Mendoza's record, because a lot of people are going to say, yeah, well, Carlos Mendoza, he's been a good manager. Look at that. He's above 500. He's got a 532 winning percentage, and by win percentage is the 5th winningest manager in Met history. That seems like something that you shouldn't be fired for, right? I say wrong. Buck Showalter is number 3, and Buck Showalter was shown the door after his second year. First year was great. First year, the Mets won 101 games, but they mightily disappointed in the playoffs. They ended up losing in the wild card round and had that terrible collapse where they got swept in Atlanta and ended up giving the division away on the last couple of days of the year. And then 2023, an injury-ridiculed season. The Mets did not perform. They were under 500, and Showalter was shown the door. Now, I see a very, very similar thing here with Carlos Mendoza. There is certainly a correlation. Carlos Mendoza had a very, very successful first season. Granted, when he came in, he wasn't successful at all, but the Mets turned around that 2024 season. They were 2 games away from the World Series. They were in the National League Championship Series and have fallen off a cliff this year. Yes, I understand they're not under 500 this year, but if the Mets miss the playoffs, I think even if they make the playoffs, Mendoza should be shown the door because he consistently makes mistakes, lineup-wise, bullpen-wise, just anything a manager can do. Situational baseball, he always makes mistakes, but if the Mets miss the playoffs, it is practically exactly the same scenario as Buck Showalter with a worse winning percentage, keep in mind, as a Met manager. But I don't think Mendoza is going to be shown the door. I was at that Met game, like I've said, Friday night. We had to go early because we had to get to the train, and it was basically garbage time anyway. The Mets were down by about 5, maybe 6 runs entering the 9th inning. Ryan Helsley was coming into the game. We all knew it was over. So we left. I started a Fire Mendy chant. I started a Fire Mendy chant from up in the 500s all the way down to when I got to the train station. I maybe encountered 1,000+ people. One fan agreed with me. I had one fan that told me, yes, we need to fire Carlos Mendoza. Out of 1,000. That is why I don't think Mendoza is going to be fired. A lot of Met fans, for whatever reason, they like him. They want to keep him around. I don't understand it personally. I don't think this guy is a good manager. He doesn't stick up for his guys. That's clear with the Jeff McNeil incident. Yes, he wins baseball games, but he makes really, really bad decisions. And I don't think he should be the manager. He's lost the clubhouse, and this is going to be, if they don't make the playoffs, the worst season in Met history because of the antics coming into the year and how disappointing the Mets have been. So with that, let's see, will the Mets actually make the playoffs? Well, they're 1.5 games up on Arizona right now. That's important to note because games played really matters right now. The Mets only have 12 to go, as do the Cincinnati Reds and San Francisco Giants. Now, the Diamondbacks have kind of shot up out of nowhere. We do not have the tiebreaker. That being the Mets, do not have the tiebreaker over the Cincinnati Reds. They do over the San Francisco Giants. But still, you're up by 1.5 games. You determine your own fate right now. So I think the Mets making or missing the playoffs rides heavily on the next 12 games, especially these 3. We can come close to leapfrogging the San Diego Padres, who are 5 games up, with a sweep of them. Then we'd only be 2 games out of them for the second wild card spot. A lot rides on the next 12 games. Let's hope that they can win some ball games. So go down there in the comment section. Let me know if you think they will win some games. Will they make the playoffs? Will they not make the playoffs? Are you someone that's on the Fire Mendy train like I am? Or are you not? Let me know what you think about the front office and Mendy and if the Mets are going to make the playoffs. Again, critical series starting tonight against the San Diego Padres. Like I mentioned in my last video, it's not going to be Sean Manaea pitching. Clay Holmes is going to start the game, and Manaea is going to piggyback against Michael King and the San Diego Padres. So, as always, thank you so much as always for watching, and 12 games to go. Most especially, let's go Mets.